So that originally aired in 1932, if you can believe it. And I especially like the part where they say, make sure you let the dial return to the normal position, the starting position, because the engineer in me is thinking, the poor engineers back at AT&T then were thinking, oh, you're gonna mess up the number of pulses we send to the network and all of this. But I actually prefer the old busy signal because it's got that kind of game show quality to it. It's the bah, bah, you called and sorry, that person's already talking to someone else, you lost. So I actually think maybe we've gone a little downhill on the tones, and maybe for our Packet 8 customers, we'll bring back a setting for classic phone tones. But if you think about cell phones, I mentioned cell phones before the video, we've actually gotten rid of dial tone completely. There's no tone to tell you that the phone's ready. There's actually a battery meter that is what most of us look at when we're on the road, and that's what we really worry about. So, it's been very slow. It's been with us a long time, but I don't have all bad news. And by implication, I personally believe it'll probably be with us for quite a while further into the future. We have made a lot of progress since about 2002, which is when we first got into the service provider space. We actually launched our first business service in 2004. And I think the advancement in the last couple of years, where we've actually gotten a lot more purple onto the network and into the user's hands than black and white, has been in the area of business communications, how businesses go about using their telephone systems and services. We've introduced a lot of new features over that period. We've introduced new capabilities. And I would be remiss if I don't mention in this economic climate and this week we're going through on the markets, the industry has also introduced new price points to these business customers, and there's a lot of money to be saved. There hasn't been one type of business that's been impacted more than the others. Something significant here is the largest enterprise with a multi-$10, $100 million campus solution that's based on voice over IP, has gotten access to a lot of the same features that a home office with one employee or a part-time, half-time employee has access to. And we've also seen, especially in the last year, because we started doing this in 2004, no one else was really there with us. There were a few people, but in the last year, we've seen a ton of competitors come into the space, and I think that's a good sign. We've seen some of the companies in the space in the last 12 months actually start making money. Hey, imagine that, we can make money doing this. So I think that's even better. And these are the guys that are affected. So the accessibility of these types of solutions, especially the guys I deal with are the smaller size businesses, the smaller end of the spectrum, where there aren't unlimited budgets, where there's CapEx ceilings that they can't do anything about. The accessibility of these types of services has been incredible. And if you look at how a small business owner might save money off their monthly phone bills, if I can save a customer $20,000 a month, and think we're in this Black Monday environment that we're in, that translates into almost $250,000 per year that stays with that business. And in addition, by the way, the business gets access to better services and features. And that's making a big deal, I think. That's a huge dynamic that's going on in the space right now. Our industry as well is able to provision these services instantly. We can deploy them anywhere in the world. We don't worry about whether you're on our footprint or off our footprint or any of that old stuff. We just need a high-speed internet connection. And fortunately, we live in a country where I hope high-speed internet access is a political priority, if nothing else. I hope the next incoming president has a lot to say about that. The advance in the space is, of course, we're moving business communications from the private networks over to the public internet. Every one of my customers talks to their services, if you will, in my data center over the public internet. So that immediately raises a question as to whether the public internet can support business quality voice. And this is a big debate right now. There are many people in the space, and many of them showed up after, you remember the week-long Skype outage last year, and some businesses were affected by that. Many people say you have to have a dedicated or a private data connection in order to have business quality voice. And I've got news for those people. Number one, those dedicated connections have issues too. You can trip over a router in the phone closet or the data closet just as easily as you can a public internet connection. And on the topic of voice quality, I think the answer is definitely yes, but I'm going to qualify that with you need to monitor. You need to proactively be monitoring those connections. I've got 12,000 business customers today that we monitor each and every phone call they make. We look for quality issues, and that's some of the data I want to share with you today. So this data was collected, in the last 30 days. Again, we've got a lot of this available for analysis. It was collected from customers of ours, both residential customers and business customers, that are at arbitrary and, most importantly, self-installed locations on the internet. So these are not 10 customers that I went and jury-rigged their data connection. This is people that installed the service themselves. If you remember, I said 8x8 had a long history. We used to sell customer premise equipment, so we still have some of that legacy with us. And we have the ability in our endpoints to, at the end of every call, measure the quality of the call, look at the network parameters of the call, transmit that back to our data center, and actually we write just like we write a record to bill the customer at the end of the month, we write a quality record for that call. So the data we're going to show here, I don't have a drum roll effect, I'm sorry, is from a representative sample of about 100,000 customers. Over the sample period, the data here was from 16.7 million calls. And again, we have both residential and business in here. Businesses tend to have better data connections than residential customers, but they also have local area network issues. So there's core router issues, there's some really bad small business LANs out there, and they also have multiple calls running at the same time, which you don't seem to find in the home. So here's the data. What we found was over this sample period, 16.7 million calls, 84% of those customers that were included in the pool had all of their calls in the green box there, toll quality or better. 9% of those customers had at least one call during the sample that we would classify, for lack of a better term, as cell phone quality. It means during the call, at some point, there was a little bit of packet loss, there was a little extra jitter, you might have heard some warbling that we weren't able to conceal, but definitely, I have AT&T, so cell phone quality to me is maybe different than it is to you. But cell phone quality for those customers. And we had 6.8% of our customers who had one or more calls that we would consider unacceptable for business use. A lot of packet loss, big dropouts where you may not be hearing the other side. And so the conclusion from this data is that the public internet appears to be ready for real-time business communications about 85%, for 85% of the sampled customers at their locations. 15% of the self-installed customer locations are going to require some tweaking or improvement to get that business quality voice on each and every call. And what this means, in my opinion, is that every person out there, every business, every consumer should be able to get access to business quality voice. 85% of them are going to have to do nothing in order to get that access, and 15% of those customers are going to have to do a little work. So I would say that data, given the advantages you get with the public internet side of being able to provision immediately, being able to use the service from anywhere you are, outweighs the little bit of headache we have to do for the 15%. And I can tell you in our provisioning group and our support groups at 8x8, this data matches up with about what we see with new customer installations. So we think we have to work with about 15% of our new customers to get them up and running. So what this brings us to, I think, is another advantage of what we're doing today for these businesses, and that is the actual installation process and the training process of getting the employees to use these new services has been improving dramatically. So if you think about the old days, you were a small business and you would either call the incumbent Bell in your area or you would call the dreaded phone guy. This is the guy that charges at least $100 an hour, and if he's there a minute, he charges you a quickie hour. And the only way to get a phone system installed, the only way to get a phone system maintained was to call the phone guy. And a lot of people still do this. But in the past couple of years, the technologies are getting there where the phone guy expertise might not be needed anymore.